The Mark Cox Show on FM News Talk 97.1, 98.7, AM 1490, and 97.1talk.com.
Well, he had no choice. I think President Trump, his idea of negotiating is, it's bullying. It's bullying CEOs, bullying his primary opponents, bullying nations. You can't bully nations because Peña Nieto has a constituency. Right now, he's weak in the polls. Right now, there are huge gasoline lines, higher gasoline prices. Trump says he wants him to build a wall and pay for it, wants to renegotiate NAFTA, and now an import fee of 20%, which, by the way, is illegal under NAFTA. You can't do that. It's supposed to be free trade between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. So, Peña Nieto's back is really he can't probably make too many concessions now. So I think President Trump has negotiated against himself, and we have little leverage now.
Blah, blah, blah. That is Bill Richardson, a former ambassador and a former governor who simply doesn't understand negotiation the way Donald Trump does, in my opinion. I mean, I know he's been an ambassador, but all he wants to do is be the party of no. Isn't that what they used to accuse the Republicans of? Oh, he can't. Now he's negotiating with himself. He can't do this to Mexico. Really? Does Bill Richardson really believe the United States doesn't have the upper hand in a negotiation with Mexico? I mean, I'm not a PhD in that area, but that seems pretty obvious to me. Our guest right now is Dr. Herb London. You've probably seen him on the Fox News channel, and he's head of the London Center for Policy Research. Dr. London, how are you?
I'm doing well. Nice to be with you.
Well, thanks for giving us some time today. What is your take on this dust-up with the Mexican president this week?
Look, what the president has said is that he is very much interested in renegotiating treaties that have had an adverse effect on the United States. NAFTA has not been a terrible treaty for the United States, but it has certainly lost a lot of jobs. And the consequence of this is that the president is saying, look, I'm in the business of creating jobs, and I'm going to renegotiate on the basis of what is good for the American worker. I mean, I think I understand that. And after all, he's got a tabula rasa. And the tabula rasa suggests that he can imprint on it for the United States. So I am very much behind what Donald Trump is doing.
Dr. London, I'm afraid we've got you on speakerphone or something here. I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better. Sorry about that. Sounded like we lost you there for a moment. I've wondered about that, and this is this is an administration that's not. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not practiced in the art of Washington politics. So when the president's press secretary came out and said, "Oh, the president wants to impose a 20% tariff on all goods coming out of Mexico," he didn't realize that the media was going to take that and run with it and declare it the new policy. I don't think it was his intention to suggest that was going to happen tomorrow. And yet you've got people like Bill Richardson coming out and claiming that that's illegal and the president can't do this. I don't think they've ever come across a negotiator like Donald Trump. Agree or disagree?
Well, I do agree. I agree with that completely, largely because Donald Trump understands something that most people in Washington do not. He does not deal with the embroidery of niceties. He is simply unfiltered. Donald Trump is saying exactly what he thinks. Now, the imposition of a 20% tariff will undoubtedly mean higher prices for the Mexican beer that you're drinking or the tequila that you like.
Right.
I'm not sure that it's desirable. But the important point is that what he's doing is saying, look, I'm going to lay down certain rules here. And as far as I'm concerned, that may very well have some sort of effect.
Sir,
possible outcome of negotiation.
We've got a horrible connection here. I got about every third word of what you said a moment ago.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't know if we've got a bad cell line or what. Do you expect that at some point President Nieto, President Trump are going to sit down with Justin Trudeau and renegotiate NAFTA?
Hello, can you hear me
now?
now?
I can hear you now, sir. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was merely saying, look, what Donald Trump is doing is he's unfiltered. He's a guy who is simply saying, you know what, I'm going to give you my best shot. And it may very well be that it's inappropriate at this time, but this is a threat. If you're not going to live up to agreements that will have some sort of salutary effect on American relations with Mexico, we're not going to proceed. And I think that is a sensible way to negotiate. This is very different from the embroidery of niceties that you get in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
People are unaccustomed to this. Bill Richardson is unaccustomed to this. So, again, what you see is an unprecedented way of negotiating. Frankly, I think it's refreshing because it is unfiltered. But again, this is very different from what the Washington diplomats are accustomed to.
Unfiltered. And today, Nikki Haley spoke at the UN. I don't know if you heard her comments or not, but she basically said, we're going to be watching you, and if you don't have our backs, we're going to take names. It sounded like something Ambassador Bolton would say.
Well, again, part of the difficulty here is that the United States contributes 22% of all of the funding for the UN, 25% of the peacekeeping operations, and these people vote against us. They are not in tune with American foreign policy. So you have to ask yourself the obvious question. You're providing all of the underwriting for this organization, or a significant portion of the underwriting, and you're not getting any benefits from it. I think that it's worth asking, what is going on here?
Yeah, it's a great point. I know you also wrote a book with Jed Babin regarding the war against Israel. I'm hopeful. I mean, I heard President Trump say part of this in a Fox interview the other night, that they're going to – he's already invited Benjamin Netanyahu to the U.S., and they're going to recommit their relationship to Israel.
Well, based on what happened at Security Council, which was the swan song for President Obama, it strikes me that the United States is now in a position where we can do very little to change the international law that was created by Obama. But there are symbolic gestures that are possible. And one, of course, is moving the embassy to Jerusalem, the American embassy to Jerusalem. And that, I think, would be a very appropriate position for Obama to take, for President Trump to take. Again, there will be critics who will say, oh, this will only inflame the Arabs.
Yeah.
But there is no doubt they're inflamed already. Yeah. And silence is not a way of dealing with these issues either. The United States has to demonstrate that we have the backs of Netanyahu and the Israelis. We are not going to tolerate a situation where even the Jewish quarter in the Old City is considered to be illegal because of the provisions that were taken at the United Nations.
Yeah, that's a great point. Dr. Herb London is our guest from the London Center for Policy Research. Sir, have you been surprised at all at the pace of what Donald Trump's accomplished in his first 5 days in office?
I'm astonished, absolutely astonished. I mean, here's a guy who's working overtime. By and large, I was not a Trump supporter, so let me try to be as dispassionate about this as possible. I was not a Trump supporter during the primary season, and I didn't think that he was really capable of filling the role of president in an effective manner. But I have been completely wrongheaded. The guy has moved rapidly and appropriately in directions that one could have not anticipated even 5 days ago. We have a very different stream of consciousness in Washington, and a lot of people have been put on the defensive. People who wanted the status quo, were interested only in the status quo, and now find themselves in a very different kind of position because Washington is moving ahead in a Donald Trumpian fashion.
Well put, sir. Let me direct people to your website, it's londoncenter.org for the London Center for Policy Research. Dr. Herb London, thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Interesting there. Somebody who was not on board with Donald Trump at all and has kind of come around in a hurry. I think that's very interesting. Dr. London leads this policy research center on national security and energy and risk analysis, and I'm sure it's not someone who hands out praise easily. So I think that's pretty impressive. Hey, you know, one thing we didn't talk about this hour was the March for Life. How about that? I've seen a few pictures of the crowd. Obviously, thousands and thousands of people. Now, here's what you know will inevitably lead the 6 o'clock news somewhere in the mainstream media. There'll be a picture comparing the women's march on Washington last weekend with the size of the March for Life.